G'day Bomber fans, our AFL team is moving down the ladder, but our VFL team is rising slowly but surely. We're out of the bottom four, which is barely an achievement, but we will take it. As you all know, I do these videos every 2 weeks. I look at our AFL listed players and how they're tracking in the resis. There were some really good performers in this period. Some guys could come back into the AFL side through their good performances. I'm filming this video on a Wednesday, releasing it on a Friday, so I am late with the team selection. Before I get into the individuals, a quick recap of the games. We started with a win against Port Melbourne. It was a close contest up until half-time. We trailed by 4 points, but after the main break, we piled on the goals and won by 26 points. The following week, we played Casey away from home. It was a bit different. It was another tight match. We were right in it, 5 points down in the fourth term at one stage, but then they pulled away, winning by 22 points, making it 1 win and 1 loss from our 2 games, just like in the AFL. So let's get onto the individuals. Tsatas is in fantastic form in the VFL. I said a while back I wanted to see him dropped back into the reserves for more game time because he just wasn't doing what he wanted in the AFL. This was when he was playing as our sub, and since then he's done nothing but impress, which is exactly what us fans needed to see. The thing is, if you don't watch the reserves, you don't get to see Tsatas at his best. This is a pure inside midfielder who can't break into that engine room in the AFL, being forced to play on the wing at times. It just doesn't make sense for his role. Tsatas in this period as an inside midfielder had over 30 touches in both games, 8 tackles between the games, but it's the fact he got over 10 in both those games, clearances in both those games as well. 10 against Port Melbourne, 14 against Casey. He's on an absolute tear. His hands are so clean. His ability to rip the ball out and find a runner on the outside is first class. It's great to watch, and I thought his outside work was a lot better than it's been all year in that Port Melbourne game. You didn't feel uncomfortable seeing him with ball in hand in open play, which was great. The following week was a bit iffier, but I still think it's a big step for Tsatas. If I had to pick a favourite game of the two, I would say he was more damaging against Port Melbourne. He would get an A for that match and maybe an A- for the Casey game. I'm loving this run of form though. He's been really fun to watch. I hope he stays in this VFL team and doesn't get brought back to the AFL side too hastily. Ben Hobbs. Now this is a guy I wouldn't mind back in the AFL side though. He's been really good in the last couple of weeks. He could be due a call up soon. I've really liked his defensive work in both these games. I was surprised that his tackle numbers were so low because I thought he was really cracking it. Well, I say low as if he isn't getting many. The bloke got 11 against Casey, but against Port Melbourne it felt like more than 5. His contest pressure is great. I thought he needed to find himself involved on the outside a bit after the Port Melbourne clash, only the 8 uncontested possessions, but the following week he almost doubled that. He had 14, still managed 7 clearances as well. He looks really complete. That injury is long behind him. He's running out games really well. He's another youngster in great form. You forget he's just a third-year player sometimes. He looks a lot more mature than he is. He's doing well. Sam Weideman played just the 1 game against Casey. He returned from his suspension. He was good. He kicked a goal under behind when he moved forward, but was for most of the game down back. He matched up a lot on their best marking targets. He was really solid. Most of the damage from Casey was done on ground level. Weideman played his part in the air. He didn't allow his opponents to get loose. I think he was probably our most solid defender against Casey. It was good to have him back, and hopefully he stays in the side until the rest of the year to help out Hayes and co. Will Setterfield was fantastic against Port Melbourne. That was his best in his run of VFL matches, I reckon. He was all over the ground. His work rate was elite. It shows from his numbers: 22 touches, 9 clearances, 9 tackles and 2 goals. He was a machine. That was as good a game as he's played for the club in quite some time, I reckon, maybe since last year in the AFL. The following week he was good without starring. Can't be unimpressed with the outing. He was involved in everything inside the contest. The thing is though, he's so efficient, but most of the time he's using it under pressure. It's a great trait to have in the reserves, which is usually a lot scrappier. 31 of his 45 possessions in the last couple of weeks were contested, and his efficiency hasn't dropped below 77%. That kind of says it all. He's just a mature, strong midfielder who isn't afraid of the contest. I honestly think he would have been really handy against the Demons in the AFL last Saturday. That's unfortunately too far in the past. I don't know if he's going to be getting a callback to come into the side against the Crows under the roof at Marvel though. Lewis Hayes, he hasn't been at his eye-catching best since the bye. He's been playing more as a one-on-one defender and not as that interceptor. Even against Casey with Weideman back, this was the case a lot of the time. He was solid enough against Port Melbourne. I thought he was pretty good against Casey. He was often on Ben Bryan at times, who didn't kick a goal. I think I saw him on Fullerton once or twice as well, who I only think kicked 1, and that tells you something. He isn't getting those interceptions like we saw earlier in the year, but it doesn't mean he is playing bad footy. I thought this was a decent enough fortnight from Hayes, who was looking pretty solid. Nick Bryan had back-to-back half-tons in the hit-out category. That's pretty big. I don't think he's ever done that before. To be fair, he is going up against some pretty average rucks. A few of these games I haven't really given much thought to because he is often virtually unopposed. The Port Melbourne game was one of those. Felix Flockhart rarely wins the ruck battle. His best hit-out tally came against Casey, who don't have a proper ruck really, which is why Bryan notched up 50 again against them. I at least think Bryan was held accountable on ground level against Casey by Fullerton. He found it tough to impact around the ground, which was a good test, but his stoppage work was great. It was tap practice in the last couple of weeks. 100 taps in 2 games, that's pretty nuts, but neither of those two are close to his most impressive that he's looked this year. It is good though that he was at least ruthless in his craft and didn't drop to his opponent's level, so can't be anything but pleased by his form. Davey Jr., weirdly enough, despite getting more of the pill against Casey, I actually think he had more of an impact against Port Melbourne. He wasn't getting heaps of the ball, but you felt a shift when he was around it. It was one of those low disposal, high impact matches. He was really prominent when involved. I looked at the stats after and was surprised that he only had the 11. I thought his tackling pressure was elite as well. He was a dangerous player all game. Against Casey, he got more touches, which is good, but you didn't feel that same energy. I don't know, maybe it was just me, but it felt a bit pedestrian at times. He got on the scoreboard, which was good, but I would just love to see more of that Port Melbourne energy injected into the contest, because he was really having a say on proceedings there. That was a fun game to watch. Luamon Lual, he had a couple of tougher matches after that impressive last fortnight I spoke of before. He was up against Billy Gowers for most of the Port Melbourne game. Good forward Billy Gowers, definitely not the right matchup. He was beaten pretty soundly when they were on each other, unfortunately. Lual's one-on-one work is just not good enough yet to be up against those bigger, stronger forwards, and he struggles to find himself in attacking plays when he is struggling to contain his direct matchup, so that's a flaw that can be addressed. It was a similar story the following week against Casey. He was caught out a few times by Shane McAdam and some others that he played on, but I at least thought he addressed that flaw I spoke of before and did well to get his hands on the ball more. That was a nice shift in just 7 days. The fact that he gets his hand, he was finding himself involved despite his losing his direct matchup. It was a very tough fortnight for him though. I doubt he was having much fun in either of these games. He was made to really work. Jayden Davey, this is what we were calling out for, some goals. I've been critical of him, saying that he isn't scoring enough, and we got this. I thought he was okay against Port Melbourne without setting the world alight. He clearly had a knack for turning the tide with a touch though, so you can't judge him based on disposals. Low touch, high impact player like Davey that game, his brother. 3 goals the following week against Casey though, that's 5 in 2 games. That's a great output for a small forward. We need more of that. I thought he was really good against Casey, one of his best games for the club. One thing though, I do think we need to see a bit more from Davey to make him a well-rounded player. We need to see him lift his pressure. I feel like he's involved but never really laying that tackle. He's not strong enough yet, and his efforts are usually broken up pretty easily. 0 tackles in 2 games. We need to see this goal kicking stay prevalent while he builds on his tackling pressure. That could turn him into a really handy player if he manages to do that. Archie Roberts, what can you really say about this guy that hasn't been said a billion times? He was just excellent against Port Melbourne, going about his business as usual. He was moved into the back line a bit though, and I really liked it. It was a promising, complete game of footy, so that's fun. He intercepted well, he had 7 for the day, he used the footy well, 32 touches, 3/4 effective, kicked a goal. It was just a brilliant game of footy, and of course he followed it up against Casey, 25 touches, 9 intercepts this time around, moved the footy so well. I think we're going to see him behind the ball a lot to round out the year. I like him on a wing, but I'm liking him down back too. I like him everywhere. He's honestly probably a smoky to win our VFL best and fairest. He's playing superb footy this year. I hope he's being considered for our senior team because he deserves to be at least in the squad of 26 based on form. Vigo Visentini recently signed a 1-year deal. Good on him, and rightfully so. He's showing a lot to like. I really enjoyed that Port Melbourne match because there was adversity. He had a quiet first half. He couldn't find himself involved. It would have been tough for him at halftime, but he exploded after the break. He kicked 2, could have had more, started really attacking the footy, and he was one of our best in that third quarter, which is when we really started to get on top as a team. He played a big part in our third quarter surge. Against Casey, it was a bit quieter. He again picked up more after halftime. That's becoming a bit of a theme with Vigo. Kicked a goal, which is nice. He gets chances. He is back to impacting the game. He had a run of bad form recently, 3 or 4 games in a row that had me worried, but he's bounced back. Let's see if he can maintain this form and have one of those game-breaking performances again like he did against Southport, I think it was. Tex Wanganeen continued his strong form in the defensive half. He had another 20 disposal game against Port Melbourne. He just manages to find it in D50 and usually do good things with it. He didn't progress forward as much because Roberts was there to do that, but you felt like he often gave us that outlet kick deep in D50, which helped us move up the field. He played more of a defensive role against Casey. He was forced to because they had some good players on ground level, so we didn't really see him get involved much in transition play. A lot of his disposals were under pressure. I didn't think he was bad, but I wouldn't say it was a game he'll be proud of or think about too much at the end of the year. That's good though, the fact that we're starting to criticise him for games like this, because a few weeks back we were criticising him for getting under 10 disposals regularly a game. He's come a long way since moving to the back half. He started playing genuinely decent footy for us consistently. Jye Menzie, a few very lively games. His first half against Port Melbourne was great, kicked 2 early goals. He was having a big say on the game. He got quieter as it went along. He had a tighter matchup that he just couldn't shake, but he kicked 3 goals the following week and would have set up quite a few more. He was really attackingly minded in both these games. 5 goals, quite a few involvements. Deja vu here, but I feel like Jayden Davey, the big issue is his forward pressure. I feel like we're pretty easy to exit against, despite having all these ground level players. So Davey and Menzie need to start doing more on ground level for us without the footy. I'm loving their work with the pill, but without it's not ideal. That is that. Good little period. We had a win and a loss. We're playing better footy as a team, which is good. Let me know what you think down below. Like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new. Of course, as always though, go Bombers.